So I want to express my thoughts a little bit about this current impeachment talk. It seems like every time I turn on the news, all I'm getting is impeachment, impeachment, impeachment. And it's almost like there's absolutely nothing else going on in the world except for this. So I want to share my thoughts on where we're at with this and whether or not I think we should be going down this road. No, I don't think we should be going down this road. And let me explain why. I look at this very similar to the issue of fake news. Now, many of us understand that fake news is a problem. It's real, fake news is real. And it really is a problem. People spread misinformation and they get people to agree and believe in things. And oftentimes it's extremely detrimental. For example, the military-industrial complex and all the fake news they spread about what's going on in certain regions of the world, all to get people to believe that we should be going to war. I mean, we've seen a lot of fake news about Iran lately. We've seen a lot of fake news about Venezuela. There's a lot of fake news out there. There's fake news about vaccines and Sandy Hook and, a variety of things that absolutely I don't think this fake news should exist. But many of us know that if you try to do anything to limit fake news, that you're ultimately hindering our freedoms. You're essentially censoring. So though we might not like fake news, though we might think fake news is definitely negative, we understand that it's worse to censor. And that we would rather put up with some fake news and try to assess it for ourselves and see what's what, and still have our freedom to be able to say what we think and not have some arbitrary panel deciding that's fake, so we're going to erase it. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to say that there's no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Everybody knows there are because the CIA said so. You're not allowed to say that, so we're just going to erase it. We all know that that is more dangerous. So many of us, we understand fake news is a problem, but we understand what's worse is the censorship of fake news, because that ultimately leads us to the censorship of real news. So I bring that up because it's very similar to what is going on with this impeachment of the impeachment inquiry, which I think will probably lead to an impeachment, which would then lead to the trial in the Senate. And of course, he'll be acquitted and it'll be nothing and he won't be removed from office. But what it will do is set a precedent that his behavior that he did was wrong. So let's talk about his behavior. Now that more time has gone through, I was on vacation, so a week has gone by since I've last talked about this, and I've been able to read all the news and hear more about the phone call, and yeah, what he did was bad. What he did was really bad. He absolutely was trying to influence Ukraine to doing what he wanted for political gain. And he was withholding. We don't have exact text of him saying, give me this or I won't do this for you. But it was kind of like the Me Too thing where it's obvious. It's like, look, you're my boss and you're asking me on a date and I feel like I have to go. What if I say no? Can I say no? I don't think I can, right? I'm reading between the lines. That is what's gone on with Ukraine and this phone call. It was kind of like a Me Too phone call where they're sitting there like, okay, yeah, we're reading between the lines. You're not maybe explicitly saying this, but we get it. And that was wrong. It was really wrong. I struggle with it. I cannot believe, it's just like, gosh, that is absolutely an abuse of power and don't like it. But when I think about it, do I want to limit that actual action, that actual behavior? No. Because if we limit that behavior, we are limiting our ability as the American people to truly drain the swamp, to one day get a leader in that Oval Office who genuinely wants to point out all of the politicians in Washington who are corrupt. And if we set the precedent today that behavior of calling to investigate, now he was not calling to manufacture dirt. People are saying, oh, he just wanted them to manufacture dirt on Joe Biden. No, that's not true. He specifically said he wanted an investigation into Joe Biden. And if we say that is wrong, you are not allowed to call for an investigation on your political opponent, that puts us in a very precarious situation. Because what if that political opponent is really, truly corrupt? I mean, Joe Biden very well might be, but let's say it's somebody obviously corrupt, somebody we know is really corrupt. Let's say El Chapo somehow gets out of jail and goes down to Mexico, for example, and he runs for president against AMLO in Mexico. And everybody's like, that guy's corrupt. And AMLO's like, hey, United States, can you continue this investigation into this guy? Because He's now running for president, and this is going to be a sham on the Mexican people. I don't think anybody disagrees that can't. I mean, that would be perfectly understandable and acceptable if somebody's truly, legitimately, obviously corrupt, right? To say, look, this guy's, oh my God, now he's running for president. Would this mean that any person who's potentially going to be investigated could just run for office and say, well, now you can't investigate me? Are they going to run for DA every time? That way the DA can't investigate their crimes because that would be their political opponent. I mean, we can't go down that road. But more importantly, what I want one day a president to actually sit in that office and truly drain the swamp, a real swamp drainer. I want that person in there. And what I don't want is that person to be afraid that if they point out this guy and that lady and that one and all of the crimes that they've done, that they're going to be impeached because the precedent was set that is not okay. The line was drawn in the sand with President Trump back in the day. You're not allowed to call for an investigation into your political opponents. And then the question becomes, well, who's your political opponent? Well, probably anybody on the other side of the team, right? If you're a Democrat, it's any Republican. That's your political opponent. If you're a Republican, it's any Democrat. So essentially, if you're in office, the only person you could point out is one of your own. I don't want to go down that road because I want that behavior that he did. I want somebody to do that. I want somebody to get in there because they are corrupt. So many in Washington are corrupt and they need to be called out. And it's interesting to me that now that's the line. They had all of these reasons why they were going to impeach Donald Trump. They started off with, well, the election was rigged. The Russians got to it. And then it was the Tower meeting and his taxes and Paul Manafort and Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. And the list goes on as to all the various Russian obstruction, Russian collusion, then obstruction. The list goes on into every way they tried to just do gotcha. It is a gotcha game with Trump. Gotcha, finally gotcha. And yet this is the one that they decide, yeah, okay, this is the one we're going to pursue. This is the one we're going to say is crossing the line. Now we're going to impeach your ass. This is the one. You can't call us out. That's crossing the line. And now we're going to set a precedent and an example and ensure that this is enshrined in history. That you are not allowed to point at any of your fellow American politicians and call them corrupt and say they need to be investigated. You're not allowed to do that. That is what the consequence of this is. And that is why I cannot support this, because it's like fake news and this idea of reining in on fake news or combating fake news. How are you going to do it without limiting my ability and my freedom? So how are you going to go after Donald Trump and say what he did was fundamentally wrong when actually the action itself was not fundamentally wrong? His motive was wrong, right? His reason for doing it was wrong. But the actual action itself, I can't say was wrong. I think you should be able to sit in that office and say, you're corrupt, I know it, and I'm calling for an investigation. And I get it, you decided to try to do this off American soil, but guess what? One phone call away to that president. Hey, Emmanuel Macron, I think that, Nancy Pelosi might have done something in your country, and I want you to investigate that because I think she did. I'm hearing a lot of stuff that something went down over there, and I can't investigate it because I'm in the U.S., and they did it over there on your soil. We cannot investigate in other countries' soil unless they agree. So, I'm not willing to give that up. I'm not willing to give that ability up. And if they draw the line in the sand and set the precedent that this is where it's at, that you're not allowed to call out your political opponents and call for an investigation, that's where this leads us, guys. And I understand that this, what Donald Trump did was very akin to the dangerous fake news that I see circulating all the time of, oh, this is what this country did and this is what that country's leader did, and now we need to go to war. To me, I get it. The fake news can be extremely dangerous, very dangerous. It can cost people lives. I understand that. I understand also what Trump did was wrong. It was morally and ethically wrong. I totally get it. I'm on board there, but I'm just not on board with the remedy. I'm not on board with the fix. I can't go along with that. Kind of over my dead body, guys. Like, this is really bad. We cannot go here. We've got to be able to protect our ability to call out these corrupt politicians because so many of them are. And we need to be able to have faith in a leader and say, yes, go to Washington and drain that swamp for real. That's what we need to be able to do. And by the way, he was elected on this message. So for his supporters, he was elected on the message of draining the swamp. That is what they see him doing. This is what that's why he's there. I mean, we all know that's not what he's really going to do, but doesn't matter. That's why they elected him. So now that he's done this, his supporters aren't going to get on board with, yeah, what he did was wrong. We all agree that the motive of what he did was wrong and why he did it was wrong. I don't think anybody's disputing that. But like I said, I'm just disputing the remedy to it. So that's where I stand on the impeachment. Something to think about, And there's other issues with the impeachment, but I just really wanted to point out that one particular faction and kind of facet of it and draw your attention to that facet of it so that you can really think about the long-term consequences of what this means. And maybe we should say to our leaders, no, guys, we're on to you. You don't want people to call you out for crime and corruption. And no, we're not going to accept that as okay. We're not going to accept that. So, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your support. Please subscribe to this channel. I love to see the numbers go up. It makes me happy. Also, I do have a Patreon and a PayPal. If you would like to support this show, I do appreciate your support. I often get demonetized when I talk about things that are considered controversial, like war and terror. So I do appreciate all the support I can get. Thank you so much for watching.